So this young martial artist had a skill so dangerous that no one in his village had even attempted it. An attacker smashed into his home during the night, armed with a deadly sword. To protect his family, the young martial artist leapt into action, executing the Mutodori technique to disarm and strike down the attacker. But there was a problem. After the elders received word of the heroic act, they called for a celebration hosted in the dojo where the young martial artist trained. On one condition, the martial artist sensei who owned the dojo must agree. But to the surprise of the elders and the young martial artist, the sensei said no. Does this heroic act not deserve recognition? One of the village elders asked the sensei. It surely does, the sensei replied. And is he not your most skilled prodigy? Another village elder asked. He certainly is, the sensei nodded. Then why will you not gracefully host the celebration? The eldest of all village elders asked. The sensei took in a long breath. For now, is the safety of his family not celebration enough? The skill this student demonstrated, while impressive, is not the most important, for there is one skill, a much more important skill, that he still lacks. Without it, his peers will pass him. When word reached the young prodigy, he stormed into the dojo to confront his sensei. You denied my celebration? He shouted. Are you not proud? Have I not learned everything you've had to teach? What is this skill you claim I am missing? The sensei sighed. You've come here seeking answers, but this is not a skill I can teach. If you cannot teach it, then my peers cannot learn it. So how could they possibly surpass me? The prodigy huffed. After a long pause, the sensei leaned in close. That's because they already have it, he whispered. A fire unlike any the sensei had ever seen blazed in the prodigy's eyes. Without another word, he stormed out of the dojo, returning the very next day with a brutal plan. Determined to master the mysterious skill he lacked, the prodigy challenged and defeated each of his peers, one by one, using every technique he knew. Have I proven myself now? The prodigy sputtered. But the sensei shook his head. The following day, the prodigy went one step further and challenged several of his peers at once, turning to the sensei for approval. But again, the sensei shook his head. On the third day, feeling bolder than ever before, he challenged the entire class. Only this time, the tide turned against him as he was stricken down and forced into submission. Bruised and bloodied, he limped over to the sensei. What more must I do? He pleaded desperately. Surely there must be some way I can master this elusive skill. The sensei leaned back in his chair. All you must do is watch, he said. As the young prodigy gazed over the dojo, he only saw what he'd seen all along. His peers would train for a while, then rest. Some would mull around, others would joke. Then they would return to training, only to repeat this cycle over and over again. They lack focus, the prodigy said to the sensei. Just look at how they laugh and play between sessions. They aren't as serious about mastery as I am. Look closer, the sensei grinned. Still, the young prodigy saw nothing but a lack of discipline. That's when the sensei reached out, placing a small acorn in the prodigy's hands. Take and plant this acorn on the grassy hill beside the village, the sensei said. Pour a single jug of water on it, then return to the hill in 3 months' time. The prodigy begrudgingly obliged, following the sensei's instructions that very same afternoon. But after months of waiting, when he revisited the hill, there wasn't the slightest sign of growth. Frustrated, the young prodigy returned to the dojo. I did as you asked, he told the sensei, but the acorn did not sprout. As expected, the sensei grinned, handing the prodigy yet another acorn. So tell me, what would you have done differently? The sensei asked. I wouldn't have poured the entire jug, the prodigy shook his head. And I would have planted it closer to home, in my own garden where the soil is more fertile. What makes you think it would grow there? The sensei raised an eyebrow. Because I water my garden daily, the prodigy replied. Why is that? The sensei asked. The plants would die without it, the prodigy declared. And I find great peace and joy in the garden. Great peace and joy, the sensei repeated. So it seems you've known all along. Sensing the puzzlement on the prodigy's face, the sensei continued. I've seen how beautiful your garden is, in all of its complexity and beauty. That's why I gave you the acorn, the sensei explained. You see, the feelings you have toward your garden are the same your classmates have toward this dojo. When you see laughter and non-discipline, I see seeds being planted. Seeds of joy. Seeds that will keep them coming back to this dojo each day for years, just as you water your garden daily. This consistency is what makes martial arts masters, not drowning themselves in skills just as you drowned the acorn. Perhaps by learning this skill now, the skill of being present and finding joy in the little things, you may one day take my place as sensei. The words echoed in the young prodigy's head for the entire walk home and in the days and weeks to come. But each day, as he watered the acorn before training, he found himself with a new perspective, one of presence and appreciation for yet another day at the dojo.